Hello and welcome to MLSGB TV. I'm Zach Walford and I'm joined by Ben Ashton to discuss Sunday's Capital One Cup final between Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur at Wembley Stadium. We'll also hear from the rest of the MLSGB team in the shape of Louis East, Jamie Ives and Lewis Adley. Hello Ben, it's Chelsea versus Tottenham, a repeat of the League Cup final from 2008. We'll start with Spurs, and what have you made of their run to the final, and what can we expect from Spurs?
Well, they've done very well to get to the final. They had a tricky semi-final against Sheffield United, who've been in great cup form in recent weeks. They got the 1-0 win ahead of Sheffield at White Hart Lane, and Townsend with the penalty there. They looked to be cruising into the final when they went 1-0 up at Bramall Lane with Eriksen's early goal. But a couple of moments of madness from Adams getting 2 goals in a couple of minutes clawed Sheffield United back into the game. But Tottenham, Eriksen, that man again with his late goals, getting that goal, pushing them over the line into the final, and it promises to be a great spectacle at Wembley.
And what do we make of Harry Kane? Harry Kane has been instrumental to this Spurs
side. He's been scintillating, absolutely scintillating. We've seen him thrive on the big stage before, so he'll be desperate to make sure that he can do that again at Wembley. He's the top goal scorer for Tottenham in this competition, 3 goals in the 5 games that he's played, and top goal scorer for the club this season with 24 in 37 in all competitions. And at only 21, he's showing great signs of maturity for such a young age, and he'll be hoping that he can do some damage to that Chelsea defence as he did in that 5-3 at White Hart Lane on New Year's Day.
And at White Hart Lane, obviously, with it being 5-3 in Tottenham's favour, Chelsea did take the lead and Tottenham showed terrific fight to get back into the game. Do we see that sort of happening again, possibly? Spurs will just go out and they'll take confidence from that game, won't they?
They have to take confidence for that game. They'd gone into that game against Chelsea without a win against Chelsea in 10 games in all competitions, and they were 1-0 down, and it looked as though Chelsea were going to cruise to another win, but Tottenham turned that game round, and they have to draw on their experience there and take that belief into the game, because that was a great win for them, not just for the footballing reasons, but mentally now. They know that they can beat Chelsea even if they go down, so they have to make sure they keep that spirit. But Tottenham have to be at their best against Chelsea.
But are they going to be able to be at their absolute best with Thursday's Europa League game in Florence on the Thursday just before they play in the cup final?
This is the major concern for Tottenham. I'm hoping that for their sake it won't be too much of an issue, because obviously cup final, it's a big stage. It shouldn't matter too much because their focus should be entirely on that game. But depending on the team that Pochettino plays on Thursday night, it will depend how fresh the Tottenham players feel in that final on Sunday.
Do you think that Mauricio Pochettino, it's his first final as a manager, with Spurs in his with the club, and it's his first season, obviously. Do you think that is going to play in his favour or with Jose Mourinho, because Jose Mourinho has delivered this silverware before?
It can go one of 2 ways, I think, because obviously Mourinho's never lost a cup final for Chelsea. He's won 2 League Cups with them and an FA Cup final, so 3 finals, undefeated. But Pochettino, he comes in with no experience of a cup final. But I think the fact that can work in his favour, because he has no bad experiences from the past. There's nothing in the back of his mind that will play tricks on him. He could just go in, approach the game as he would with any other game, and get the best out of his Tottenham side. And they're going to have to improve on recent weeks, because the game against West Ham, they didn't play at their best, but they've got to improve, and they clawed that game back at the end, so they'll go into this game in high spirits.
And what about the home form that Tottenham have displayed in the cup so far this competition?
Well, it's been an advantage for them, certainly. I mean, they made hard work of the semi-final against Sheffield United in the second leg, but they also made hard work. They could have gone out in the first round, well, the third round, but the first round that they played. Grant put Nottingham Forest 1 up at White Hart Lane, and it looked as though we were going to see a cup shock, but Mason had just come on the scene at the time, grabbed a goal for Tottenham, and then Soldado and Kane adding 2 late goals to implement that final place.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ben, and we will now head over to Louis East and Jamie Ives, who are going to take a look at how the sides could line up and their approaches to the game. Afterwards, we'll be joined in the studio by Lewis Adley to look at Chelsea's run to the final. Over to you, Louis and Jamie.
Thanks, Zach. We're going to look at 4 key areas ahead of the game. We're going to look at the predicted lineups for each team, the midfield battle between Cesc Fabregas and Nabil Bentaleb, and the 2 key players for each team, Eden Hazard for Chelsea and Christian Eriksen for Spurs. We're going to start by looking at how the Chelsea team are likely to line up in the game on Sunday.
We're expecting Thibaut Courtois to start in goal, as usual. A back 4 of Branislav Ivanovic, John Terry and Azpilicueta should retain their positions. We're expecting Kurt Zouma to come in for Gary Cahill, based on the performance he had at White Hart Lane earlier this season. Thanks to Nemanja Matic's suspension, we're expecting Ramirez to partner Cesc Fabregas in midfield. And then
Eden Hazard in his familiar position on the left. Obviously, he can rotate with Willian on the right and the left. The two wingers will swap sides throughout the game for Chelsea. Willian is likely to be preferred to Cuadrado, who's still getting used to life with Chelsea, but he'll be likely to make an impact off the bench. And Oscar should play behind Diego Costa in a frightening looking attack for Chelsea. On to Spurs. Loris in goal. Got Kyle Walker down the right. Danny Rose is likely to be preferred to Ben Davies at left back, and Eric Dyer could step in to replace Fazio, who played at the game at White Hart Lane, but Dyer's been in the team recently and been playing well. In midfield, Ryan Mason and Bentaleb will probably continue their partnership, as it's been so effective under Mauricio Pochettino.
just in front of Bentaleb and Mason, we're expecting Moussa Dembele to play more centrally, allowing Eriksen on the left and Eric Lamela on the right, and we don't see anyone else starting but Harry Kane up top. Moving on to the midfield battle, we're expecting Nabil Bentaleb and Cesc Fabregas to be the key players in the midfield battle. As you can see from the 3-0 Chelsea win at Stamford Bridge earlier on in this season, Nabil Bentaleb was very dominant in midfield, a lot of possession. However, Chelsea were very good on the counter-attack that day. As you can see from Cesc Fabregas' heat map, he was all over the pitch, allowing a lot of freedom of movement, dictating play, and Chelsea, of course, won 3-0 that day.
It's quite the opposite in the game at White Hart Lane. Spurs obviously winning 5-3, a lot more goals in that game. Bentaleb, not as highly focused in the midfield area. He spread his play across the pitch, had more of an influence on the game, drove forward from defence, and obviously it helped his side as they went on to win 5-3. Fabregas, you can see, was penned in defensively, couldn't really make an impact in the other team's half. And if that's the case on Sunday, then don't expect Fabregas to make much of an impact, because he needs to make sure he's playing behind the strikers, creating chances for his teammates.
Basically just shows that both teams are counter-attacking sides. They have struggled in this fixture when they've dominated possession. Here's just a quick look to back up that fact. As you can see, Nabil Bentaleb had more touches than Fabregas in the loss to Chelsea, and Fabregas had more touches in the defeat to Tottenham, showing that, once again, possession isn't everything in this fixture.
Going to move on and look at Chelsea's star man, Eden Hazard. Likely to start on the left-hand side with Willian on the right, as we said. And how do you think he's going to impact the game from there, Jamie?
I expect him to pick up the ball from deep, basically. We know Hazard likes to drive. He's not one of those that likes to have the ball in front of him and run at players. He likes to pick up the ball short. When he does pick up the ball, expect Fabregas to support him. Any chance that he gets stuck with Kyle Walker, Fabregas will be there to support him. If Hazard does get round Kyle Walker, he loves to turn back on himself and cut inside, which will allow Oscar to just drift off and allow for any shooting opportunities.
Spurs have their own key man in Christian Eriksen, and the Danish playmaker is also likely to line up on the left for Spurs. Difference is that Moussa Dembele in the attacking role, he likes to drop in, giving space for Eriksen to fill in behind Harry Kane. From there he can create chances from a more central position, can free up Lamela on the right, feed the ball to Harry Kane, or even have a shot on goal himself, and that gives attacking fullback Danny Rose space to run into, and Spurs can cause all kinds of problems for Chelsea, as they did at White Hart Lane earlier in the season.
It will be interesting to see, should Danny Rose get forward, just how much of a threat Willian can be on the counter. Here's just the basic statistics analysis from their Premier League performances this year. As you can see, they both have 9 goals, they're level on that. Hazard's winning the assist battle on 6 against 1. He also wins on the key passes per game, and he has the most dribbles per game in the Premier League this season.
That's all from us. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much to Louis East and Jamie Ice for joining us there. I've now got Lewis Adley with me in the studio. Lewis, what do you make of Chelsea's run to the final, and what can we expect from the Blues?
Well, in patches, it wasn't the greatest form that Chelsea have displayed this season, so I'll highlight on that Liverpool game, which really sound defensively. Something that Mourinho likes to display in top games, kept the game very tight. Would have been disappointed conceding the goal against Liverpool at Anfield, but did the job. Probably didn't want extra time, but Ivanovic with the goal there. So, yeah, a good run through. Not too many scares, no real hiccups as Tottenham had. So we're expecting some good form from Chelsea.
And talking of Ivanovic, 6 goals in the last 4 games in all competitions. He's been absolutely flying, hasn't he? Yeah,
very impressive, especially for the full-back. But we know he likes to get down that side. He's got a lot of freedom down the right-hand side, as Chelsea do all over the park, really. But he's proven that he can score the important goals. As I said, scoring the goal against Liverpool, but he's not just scoring with his head, he's finishing sublime like any centre-forward would. So he'll be in really, really high spirits.
And let's stick with the Chelsea defence. Who do you think will partner John Terry? Do you think it'll be Kurt Zouma or Gary Cahill? Remember, Gary Cahill played in that 5-3 defeat at White Hart Lane, and he hasn't really figured in first team plans ever since.
Cahill has struggled since that game. I think a lot of people have noticed that, and Zuma has been a very solid signing for Chelsea this season. You know, he's come in as a young lad who maybe people weren't expecting a lot from, not knowing too much about him, but he's put in some excellent displays, and I think Mourinho will reward him with that starting place in the final on Sunday.
And let's have a look at Chelsea's top scorer in the competition, Eden Hazard. He's so instrumental to this Chelsea side, isn't he?
Well, if Hazard's working, Chelsea are working. He can spin the game any way he likes. He is just so fantastic at bringing in the unknown. You know, the way he stops with the ball and then turns on the pace. Tottenham did struggle to deal with that both in the home game this season, and although they won the game 5-3, Hazard was still instrumental. So if Chelsea can just give the ball to him like they do, I think they could be within a good chance of seeing some glory here.
And do you think that there's obviously there's a big miss, a huge hole that's going to be missed? Nemanja Matic suspended for the final. 2 games, obviously, for the violent conduct displayed against Burnley. How big a miss is he going to be for the side?
It will be. I mean, he's only missed 3 games all season, and Chelsea have lost 2 of those. So with a 77% win ratio with Matic in the side, it's not surprising, is it?
It's not at all. And with that, we are expecting Ramirez to come into the side, and Fabregas will be playing the deep role. Is that going to be a bit of a worry for Chelsea in the sense that Fabregas may not be allowed to have the advanced movements that he does when Nemanja Matic plays?
I think so. I mean, we can see that Chelsea do play some really fancy attacking football with Fabregas allowed to roam, but that's where other players are going to need to step up. Ramirez, as we know, loves to run all over the pitch, but I think Oscar will have to play a key role in this final and almost fill a gap that Fabregas will be missing in terms of having to cover for Nemanja Matic. And
me and Ben alluded to, Tottenham will have a game on the Thursday in Italy before the cup final. Chelsea are coming off of a 1-1 draw with Burnley. Is that going to play in their favour? They've had longer rest time. Mourinho's had more time with his players.
Yeah. Well, we know that's not a good result for Chelsea. There's no hiding that. But I think Mourinho will have his players pumped. He's going to have drilled them and will not want to see the same mistakes that we saw in that 5-3 game. Tottenham could be tired, so we will see how that goes.
Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. My thanks to Lewis Adley and also to Louis East, Jamie Eyes and Ben Ashton for joining us. Remember to get in touch on Twitter at MLSGB with the _, and you can also keep up to date with all the latest MLS and Premier League news on Facebook, Instagram and of course the website www.mlsgb.com. You can also subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or listen to us on Stitcher. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy the cup final on Sunday. And until next time, from all of us here at MLSGB, goodbye.